Join us aboard BC Ferries as we travel the stunning route between Vancouver and Victoria in British Columbia. I'll share the scenic highlights plus 10 tips for your visit. We're joined by our little explorer who was most enthusiastic about the ferry. If you enjoy this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more of the best of the Pacific Northwest. Tip number 1. There are lots of ways to get from Vancouver to Victoria, but choose this route. And if you're wondering how to get from Seattle to Victoria, this is also the way I'd recommend. The ferry leaves from Tsawwassen, just south of Vancouver, and it travels through the scenic Gulf Islands before arriving at Swartz Bay, which is about 30 minutes drive north of Victoria. The other ferry from the Vancouver Metro to Vancouver Island leaves from Horseshoe Bay, north of Vancouver, and it lands at Nanaimo on Vancouver Island. It's a good option if those locations are more convenient to your origin and destination, but the ferry ride doesn't go by the islands, and it lands a lot further from Victoria. Before the pandemic, there was another scenic island route. It left from Anacortes, Washington, and traveled through the San Juan Islands before reaching Vancouver Island. Here's a flashback to that old route with one of our old cameras. The Anacortes ferry has been discontinued as of the making of this video in 2024. Depending on where you're coming from, you can also drive out to Port Angeles on the Olympic Peninsula and take the Blackball ferry from Port Angeles to Victoria. But that one only runs a few times per day, so it's less flexible and reservations fill up fast. If you have a limited budget, there are some other pretty cool options. From the Seattle waterfront, you can take the Victoria Clipper ferry directly from Seattle to Victoria, though that one's really expensive, and you can't take your car on the Victoria Clipper. And finally, if money is no object, you can take a flight. Mainstream airlines fly to Victoria, or you can take a seaplane from either the Vancouver or Seattle metro areas, or you can even take a helicopter from Vancouver to Victoria. So, now let's focus on the scenic ferry ride from Tsawwassen to Swartz Bay and tips for your journey. Tip number 2. If you're traveling with kids, there are great play areas on the ferry and also at the ferry terminal while you're waiting to board. For tip number 3, if you're traveling with pets, there are designated pet areas on the ferry. Tip number 4, go out on the deck for the best views. There's great seating inside, but don't miss the chance to take in the scenery and look for wildlife. Tip 5, pack sunscreen or a really robust hat because the wind outside is pretty phenomenal. For tip number 6, if you don't want to pack snacks, there's food on the ferry and also at the terminals. Tip number 7, especially if you're planning to take your car on the ferry with you, book your ticket online in advance because space is limited. You'll still need to get to the ferry terminal 30 to 60 minutes before the scheduled departure for your booking to be honored. The ferry sails really frequently throughout the day, so you'll have plenty of options if you plan ahead. Tip number 8, if you're planning to spend most of your time in the city of Victoria, it's probably fine to walk onto the ferry and take the bus to town. There are shuttle and/or bus options from Victoria to some of the popular outside of the city destinations, like the Witchart Gardens and the Malahat Skywalk. But if you're venturing further afield, it's probably easier with a car. Tip number 9. If you travel on a hot day, look out for this awesome misting station at the Swartz Bay terminal. And finally, for tip number 10, try to time your trip for a sunny day. The views really are unforgettable. Thanks for joining us for the ferry ride from Vancouver to Victoria. Remember to give this a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.